Hey, first grade, Miss Metric here again. It is time to read our main story for the week. And for our main story, it is called At the Crayon Factory. All right, so we are going to read this story together. Remember, the first time that we read it together, and we do it nice and slow because we want to make sure that we get all of our words correctly. So let's read our title together. Ready, go. At the Crayon Factory. And this is by Laura Williams. Now, I'm pretty sure that in this story, because it is nonfiction, meaning it is a true story, that there are photographs throughout the entire story. And this crayon factory is Crayola, which is where most of us get our crayons from, is Crayola. And like I said in one of my earlier videos, that my brother-in-law, so my sister's husband, he lived right next to the Crayola Crayon Factory. So maybe one day I'll go and I will do a tour of the Crayon Factory and I can tell you guys all about it. That would be super cool. All right, so I'm going to minimize this box because I don't want to be a distraction for you kiddos. So I am going to see you later on the side video. And it is time to start our story. So we already read our title, At the Crayon Factory by Laura Williams. Let's turn to the next page. So before we start, I'm actually going to go back real quick. So before we start, we see that every crayon has a little point on the top. And I wonder how they get these shapes. So this is what we're going to find out about the Crayon Factory. All right, so let's read the first page. So first word is look. Ready, go. Look at me. I am a bright red crayon. Come with me and I'll show you how I was made. All right, so just from reading this little introduction, they are going to tell us in this nonfiction story or selection, they are going to tell us about how crayons are made. All right, so let's turn to the next page. Oh man, I wonder what these big cylindrical things are. They look pretty big because if this is a ladder, that means that they're really big and they're bigger than people. Think about how big a ladder is. Look how many rungs are in there. So this has to be pretty big. All right, so let's start with our finger under the word it, and let's read this whole paragraph. Ready, go. It all started at a factory. First, I was part of a blob of wax. The wax is kept in some very large tanks. The tanks are very hot. Next, the wax flowed down a pipe. It went into a new tank. All right, so these big giant cylinders are actually tanks. And what do they hold in there? You're right, wax. So if you look back, you can read the sentence. It says, the wax is kept in some very large tanks. So they keep the wax in here. And how do they keep that? So I want you to think of a candle, and candles are made out of wax. Are they hard or are they soft? They're hard because they're dry and cool. So what they do, if you read it, it says the tanks are very hot. So it's melted wax in there. And then it goes down maybe one of these pipes, or it could be underground, and then it goes into a new tank. All right, so let's find out what happens next. All right, so, what happened to that wax? So most candles are just clear white. They're like clear or cream. Now this wax is red. How do you think that it got to turn red? How do you think? All right, let's find out. Let's start with the word some. Ready, go. Some red powder was added to the wax. Soon, the wax turned red. I was very happy because red is my favorite color. The wax went down another pipe. It came out into a big bucket. All right. So, did you predict correctly? Sorry, Miss Matrix phone was ringing in the background. So, did you um, predict correctly? Man, that was really loud. Sorry. So, did you predict correctly about how it turned red? So some of you might have thought dye or like food coloring, like you do in Mr. Nichols' science experiments, but it's actually powder. But powder, the red powder is really a dye, but it just comes in powder form instead of liquid form. All right. So let's turn to the next page. All right, starting at the word then. Ready, go. Then a worker poured the wax into a mold. The mold had many holes in it. Each hole was shaped like a crayon. Wax filled all the holes. Cool water flowed around the mold. The water was chilly. It made the wax hard. I was almost a crayon. So why do you think they had to put cool water around the mold? So you can see a little bit that there's like little holes right here. So they pour the hot wax in there and then they put cool water around it. Why did they do that? You're right. So if you go back and read, it says it made the wax hard. So when it's warm, it's melted. And then once you cool it down, it hardens the wax. How do these pictures in our story, how do they help you understand the story better? Yeah, so the pictures provide more information about making crayons and they give a clear picture of what the words say. So maybe if you didn't know what a big, large tank looks like, the first picture can show you what a tank looks like. Then you can see what this mold looks like because you could hear mold, but you might not understand what it means. And you can see that these little holes are in there and then they pour the wax in. So pictures help us understand the story a little bit better. All right, let's read about this worker. Ready, go. A worker took me out of the mold. Other skinny red crayons were all around me. The worker checked the crayons to see if any were chipped. Chipped crayons must be melted and made again. So you can see these little holes in here. They pulled all of those crayons out of the mold. Very neat. So what happens if a crayon is chipped? You're right. They have to be melted and made again because we don't want to have any imperfect crayons. All right, let's read this next page. Ready, go. At last, the worker checked me. He saw that I was not chipped. I was lucky because I didn't have to be melted again. So, how did this little crayon guy, how did he feel that he was not chipped? Lucky, you're right. So if you look back to the last sentence, you can read it again. It says, I was lucky because I didn't have to be melted again. So he felt lucky. And it is good to be lucky. All right, let's turn to the next page. Okay, looking at the word soon. Ready, go. Soon I got my label. A machine spun me around. I was whirled and twirled. Whee! I got very dizzy. Look at this crazy crayon up here being all dizzy. All right, let's turn to the next one. All right, starting with the word next. Ready, go. Next, a machine sorted us by color. There was a line for each color. I was in the red line. So what happens to the crayon next? So we saw that they got put in a mold, checked for chips. So what was the next part? It gets a label. It gets its paper label right here. See the paper? It gets wrapped in there. So what do you think is going to happen to the crayon next? I want you to think. I want you to make a prediction, and we'll see if your prediction was correct on the next page. All right. Let's put your finger under the word then. Let's read it. Ready, go. Then I looked down and saw some more colors. Hello, yellow and green. Hello, blue, I called. Hello, red, they called back. Come down here and join us. So what happens to the crayons now? Was your prediction correct? So now they get, they are going to be put with the other colors. So my prediction is that they're going to be put in their box next. Let's see if I'm right. Yeah, buddy, there they are. There's the boxes. All right, let's read and see what they do here. Starting with the word then. Ready, go. Then we were all packed into boxes. Some boxes had 96 crayons. Others had 24. I was packed into a small box with 7 other crayons. All the crayons were bright and friendly. We looked great together. Very nice. Okay, so how does the red crayon feel? How does he feel now? He feels pretty good. He might be proud, happy, excited. It says all the crayons were bright and friendly. We looked great together. So I would say he might be even excited to make new friends with those other crayons. So now what do you think is going to happen? After they were packed in all of their boxes, what's your next prediction? Let's see if you're right. Turning the page. All right, let's see what is happening in this picture. Ready? Put your finger under the word all, and we're reading together. Ready, go. All the little boxes were packed into big boxes. Workers loaded the big boxes onto a truck. The truck traveled a long way. At last, it stopped at a store. So where do all of these boxes go? To a store, you're right. So it says the very last sentence, you can always look back. It says, at last, it stopped at a store. Nice job. So what is the last thing that's going to happen to this crayon? What do you think? Yeah, someone's going to buy the crayon. So let's start with the word Ready, go. A worker placed us on a shelf. Buy me, I called when people walked by. One day, a girl in a red shirt picked up my box. Her name was Kelly. Now I would be able to color something. Wow, very nice. So What do you think will happen to the crayon next? What do you think will happen next? I think you're right. I think she's going to be coloring with him. Let's turn the page. All right, let's read this together. This is 2 paragraphs, starting with the word when. Ready, go. When Kelly and I got home, we colored some apples. The next day, we colored a beach ball. The best day of all was the day we colored a fire truck red. Now you know how crayons are made. Think of me when you color with your red crayon. Oh, I like that story. So let's turn to the next page. It should come up on the computer, but I'm not sure. And it's going to give us the 4 steps to making a crayon. Yes, awesome. All right, so what was step 1? So step 1 was pouring the red wax into the mold. What's step 2? Step 2 was taking all of the crayons out of the mold. What happens in step 3? Let's turn the page. Step 3, what does he do? He checks for chips, you're right. And then if there aren't any chips, you get to go to step 4. But if you have a chip in you have to be remelted. And then let's talk about what happens in step 4. What happened in step 4? Yep, there was a label. You can see the paper label right there that they roll that crayon in and then they put the label on it. All right. So before we go and we finish our reading, I have one last question. Why do you think the author wrote this story? Why would someone write this story? Maybe they wanted to teach us how a crayon was made. And I'm sure that some people are very curious on how things are made, and that this author thought, well, if I want to know how crayons are made, maybe kids want to know, and I can write a little story and educate them on it. So I really hope you enjoyed this story, because I really did. I think it was really cool to learn how you make a crayon, because we use them all the time, almost every single day in class. So I hope you continue to color and draw and sketch at home, like in our 2 stories. So we had our sketching story, and then now we had this story about how to make a crayon. So if you would like to create something for me and take a picture and send it to me on Doja, or maybe even Mr. Nichols or Mr. Bowden, we would love to see it. So have a wonderful rest of your day, first grade. I miss you tons and tons and tons. And remember, you can always stop in during our Zoom meetings, because I love seeing your smiling faces. Even if you just want to stop in and say hi and you don't really need any help, that's fine. You can stop in for like 15 minutes, say, "What's up, Miss Mitrick?" I love seeing you guys. So have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, and I miss you tons. Bye, first grade.